Hello my friends, John LaRuffa here with another rules speed through, and this time we are going to do something a little bit different. Yes, we're going to go quickly, but I'm going to give you a rules speed through of 6 castles. Now there's not that many rules, so I don't feel the need to usually accelerate it like I do, but I want to explain this a little bit slower because even though it is a speed through, the rules here need a little bit of explanation. I mean, I don't understand. It should be a pretty straightforward game. A couple more examples in that rule book would have helped it. It is a straightforward game, but there are meaty, crunchy decisions, and a lot of those need just a little more explanation. So let's get right to it. Okay, so let's take a look at the overview and the setup for a solo game. Now, the solo rules are printed online. You've got to go find those. They're not in the box. But basically what you do is you take 12 of these land tiles for the solo player. He's not really a player. He's just going to flip tiles, and you take 12 for yourself, deal 2 out here. That's your starting tile. You always start with this side on the starting tile. Notice that tile is two-sided. Everything else is single-sided. And then you begin with, you should have 4 of these little paths. You will have this castle majority tile always in play here for one of the endgame bonuses, a hidden one, and then 3 other ones that are drawn at random. And then you will have a stack of your castles, just like in the regular game, 6 of these land tiles, which you can swap out throughout the game at any time, your stack of coins, and then you start the game with 2 actual half coins. Okay, so you begin the game with this setup. And that is the components. There's also these little player aids over on that side, which I've displayed there, but I'll kind of walk you through. And so there is the setup for the solo game. Now, playing the solo game, the first thing that's going to happen is that the solo player is going to take their turn. They're going to choose the top tile. You're not going to see what it is, and you're just going to flip it over without choosing the orientation, okay? There's one rule to that. If the tile ends up having one of these crag signs on it, then it has to be oriented if there's another one by it from a crag standpoint, like you would place castles. Okay, so that's the only thing that's going to happen there. The other thing with the AI opponent is that if the game has a situation like this, now again, that was not where that comes from, but let's just say it was like this, I would have to put the tile in a spot that would touch the most tiles. So this would be required for me to put it here. I would not be able to put it in any other spot. And if I flipped it over and had, oh, there it is, the crag, I would not put the crag facing this way. I would have to orient it so that it is actually touching another crag. That is the only thing the AI does is flip tiles. You don't have to worry about anything else with regards to his gameplay. And so that makes it very simple from a standpoint of doing things solo. You just have to focus on your strategy and your turns. And there's actually enough to focus on in this game where that's great. So let's go ahead and explain the gameplay. So on your turn, you're going to play one or the other of your face-up tiles. You can play it at any orientation, in any spot. If the tile has a bonus inside of it, like this one does, you're going to take that bonus at the point of playing. So this one allows you to move up 1 free space on the church track or the religious track. That's what that card or that little thing indicates right there. This one would let you actually take another one of these land tiles and add it to your supply. A note on the land tiles, you can move these around, swap these around, flip these around, do whatever you want with them until this tile or this little marker is on any of those pieces. Then once it starts to make its way up, no tile where it is or where it has passed can be swapped out. So those are fixed at that point. Okay, before that, you can do whatever you want. Also, throughout the game, there might be a situation where you might have your discs on them. If you flip this around or swap it around, you have to discard the disc. So you have to remove the disc if you make any choices to a tile that has a disc on it. Okay, so again, the only way to get extra one of these land tiles is through a tile like that. Otherwise, they stay up here. You can always swap them out, though, like I said. All right, so on your turn, you're going to place one of these. Okay, and then you're going to make a choice. You can, and these are all optional. I guess if you wanted to take no action at all, you could, but you always place the tile and then decide, are we going to take A actions or are we going to take B actions? All right, and we'll talk about what those are right now. So for A actions, that is how you're going to be putting discs on the board and how you're going to be moving up the land track and how you're going to, if you want to, decide to score with another one of your discs according to the amount of traversed or explored land tiles that you've already accomplished on this little track right here. So that's what the A tile does. And let's give you an example of what happens there. So on my turn, let's say I place this, okay? First and foremost, if I complete a square that has a single or more crag tiles on it, so for instance, if my next turn I did something like this, I would have to put a castle, the top castle, right there. I would have to do that. That's not optional. Once you've completed a square, and that is in that one of those 4 different spaces, and this square is really called a hill. Once you complete a hill with that in there, the top castle goes right on top. Nothing else happens with the castle, but I will tell you about how the castle works right now, because that has to do with the disc movement. So now that I've placed my tile, my second one, as it is, I get a choice. I can do actions A or B. Let's say I want to do A. So if I do actions A, and I placed this tile right here, okay, I can choose any spot on the tile which I placed to be the hill spot that I'm going to look at for traversing the landscape. So for instance, I could choose, because again, this is this tile, I could choose these 2 hills, I shouldn't say these 2 hills, this single hill here with these 2 lands, that land, or these lands right here. Now with my current situation, I've got none of these are really matching up. So what I could do is I can kind of look around, flip these around and say, okay, wait a minute. This makes a lot of sense. Look at that. I went ahead and I put down this tile here. I can travel onto both of these by marking that off with this little disc. So there's the crag, and there's the crag, and there's the field. And so there we go. I've put this out here, and now that counts as me exploring that, and that'll be useful in the game and at the end of the game, depending on what I'm trying to score. Then I have the choice, do I want to place a disc and actually sell goods to the castle? So first and foremost, if I had chosen, let's just say, this tile, all right, and I couldn't move, let's say it's the next turn and I choose this one, all right, after I place a tile and everything else. I can't get to this right here right away. As you can see, it's not in the line. But if I have any of this in front of me, I am allowed to put this disc out here and show that I have kind of gotten a hold of these goods, okay? So that is one thing that I can do in advance, even though I'm not up on that spot. And I can use that to sell to the castle, all right? So again, in order to do that, I would have to put a tile down and choose a hill plot, in this case with 3 different locations, and that would allow me to say, okay, look, I have this over here. I can't go there yet because it's not in line, but I have that right there, and then, oh, I do have this, so I can move up like that with that kind of placement. Then I could decide to deliver goods to the castle. In this case, it doesn't matter which good I actually deliver to the castle, but some of the castles might have these spots, as you can see right here, that are specific to one or the other type of goods that are on the game board. Once I decide to deliver it, I will do this following calculation. First and foremost, I will figure out how many goods I have access to. If I was to deliver, for instance, the meat, if you can see that down here, this is meat, I would then say I have 1 meat in my area, and I would choose one of these that has meat or the question mark, and I put this down on that. And then I would multiply that 1 by the number of chapels, military camps, which look a little tense, and other houses like this, or this next to it. So this would be 1, because I have only the 1, times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I would go ahead and get 5 half coins, and each gold coin is worth 5 half coins are equal to 1 of these. So I could get 1 of these gold coins that's worth a point at the end of the game. Or I could take 5, it doesn't matter. You can make change that way, whatever you want. But that's how you do the calculation. So it's the number of goods you have access to times the number of these chapels, this house. There's always one inside the castle. And this is what I'm talking about with the military camp, that right there. Okay, then after I complete that, I can decide to mark, if I want, using one of my cylindrical discs on this area, something that I've accomplished. So in order to mark these, you have to have passed over or traveled through a certain number of tiles equal to the victory points. So for instance, right now, I have only 1 crag, but later, if I was to get my marker all the way up through here, through this crag, I could, at the end of that kind of turn, place this right here, and that would be worth 2 points at the end of the game. Now, the challenge is I'm getting rid of one of those discs, but I am scoring 2 points with it. So it's an agonizing decision because you only have a certain amount of discs. In that case, I've used one to deliver goods and I've put it out there, and that already counts. So I'm only left with 3 discs. And in a game, you have 12 turns, so that means you're making a commitment here. But that is all the different things that happens when you do the A action. You have to do these things in order: 2.1, 2.2, or 2.2, pardon me, 2.1 and 2.2. But these 3 are optional. Again, you always have to place a tile. And that is what you do on your disc placing action. Now, on your turn, you can also decide to place a tile and do the B actions. And on the B actions, you will place down one of your meeples on the intersection of the tile you just placed, and then you get to move that meeple, if you want, 1 space equal to each meeple that's on the board. So in this case, I would be able to move this 1 space, okay? So I would move it to this intersection right here, and then I would decide where I want to basically lay down. And when I lay down, that would be me being in that hill. So I basically are saying that I'm in all these spaces that are right here. If I lay down in the castle, that gives me an opportunity to score this at the end of the game, which I'll talk about at the very end. Once I lay down, I then am able to move onto the track right here. And when I do that, I have to count however many chapels and graves, which also have those little spots right there on the tile, and that tells me whether or not that tells me how many spots I can move up on this track. By the way, I just realized something in the beginning. I made a mistake. I said that this was to move up on the church track. That was wrong. When you place this, you get a free movement on your track right here. Okay, so that's a free movement without having to go to that spot. The ones that work for that movement over here are the ones that look like this. That's pretty obvious, and I'm sorry for that mistake. So I can move my guy, I can lay him down, and then in this case, since I laid on one of these and I don't have any other ones on the board, I would just move this up 1 space. However, on different turns, if I had a guy here and if I had a guy, let's just say here, okay, I would have access to 1, 2, 3 of those spots, and so moving up would allow me to move 3 spaces on the track. And then finally, I can decide to put a worker or a meeple down on one of these spots, again, to say I have a certain amount of those where I have access to. So in this case right now, I have 1, 2 chapels, so I could decide to put this right on that spot right here. It would take him out of commission for the rest of the game, but I would get 2 points at the end. And that's how the B situation works. You place a tile, you put the guy down in the intersection, you move him a total number of movements, and it's either him or any of the ones that are on the board. So you can move, for instance, if I was to place another tile, I could decide, now they have 4, to not even move him. I could move somebody who's laying down, putting him back on the intersection closest to the tile where he was, and move him around the board. And then I would have to, again, choose where he's going to lay down at the end. So it's not very clear in the rules. That's why I'm spending a lot of time going over it, because that was really a trip up that I had when I was trying to learn the game. And so that's the B actions. So the game is played back and forth over 12 rounds, and it ends when you place your final tile on the board and take your final move. Then what you're going to do is you are going to evaluate these bonus sections right here. In order to score the 5 points for this one, you have to have one of your little guys on each castle that's out there. So each castle has got to have a worker on there. If they're not on there, then you will not get these 5 points. Okay, then you're going to flip over this hidden one and hope that you got what was on there. Okay, all of these with the disc are going to say if you have at least that number of progress, in this case 1, on this type of tile, if, for instance, you've traveled over one of these barren fields, then you'll get the 1 point. Plus, you'll also get, in this case, 2 half coins. Okay, and this one here is you have to have 2 on these farm fields. That would also include, by the way, if I had one over here and I still had a disc left over, if I could find one on that spot right here. Okay, so that would be enough to have 2. Additionally, I didn't see this earlier, but if at any point in the game you come across a situation like this, these coins, these half coins can be paid and you move right on top of it. That's how you traverse through those. And then finally, you've got this one. This one, you have to have one more than this number to qualify for it. So in this case, in order to get the 2 points, I'd have to have 3 workers on tents or in, hills that have access to tents. So it's possible. It's through some clever working that you could have a situation where you have something like this. Okay, this guy counts for both of those tents. And that's how you really make some really tough decisions and crunchy moves in this game, but that's how you're going to be able to score a lot of points. So once you figure out those, you add those points, you look at the points that you have on these tracks right here, you sum those up, then you look at the points that you're covering on the church track, you get that, and then finally you get 1 point for every gold coin that you have. Any of these half coins left over, they count as 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, so on and so forth for your score. And that's it. That's how you play the game. Hopefully this rule overview has been helpful. I know that the game's rules, for whatever reason, they were just tough for me to learn, but this is actually a really good game to play solo. It's got a lot of crunchy decisions. This is not a simple Carcassonne at all, but it is a worthwhile experience once you understand the rules. So I hope that this overview has helped you, and if I made a mistake, please put it in the comments, because I tried my best, and I played this game several times, but I've played it always solo, and I've only had myself and a couple of comments from the designer to try to guide me. So let's go back and just give you my overall thoughts. So I would say that if you can get your hands on 6 castles, it is worth it for the solo play. There is a lot of good thinking. It's also probably a great multiplayer game. I don't know because I've only played it by myself, but there's a lot of really good, really tough decisions to make in this game. There's a lot to think about with regards to how I place my tiles down, how I put my land tiles together. Should I flip them over? Should I swap them? There's just a lot to comprehend in what is really a pretty small and pretty condensed package here. I won't say it's a simple game because even though the rules are simple, it's quite complex in its gameplay as far as how to maximize those points. It's harder than I thought going into it, but I really enjoy it. And it's one of those games that plays so quickly. I mean, you can play it in 15, 20 minutes if you don't get stuck in AP. That you get the idea, like, I know I can do better. This score was this, but I swear I can do better than that. Next time I'm going to try to figure out how to be more strategic with my tile play, or more strategic with the way I do my order of operations with the lands and the workers, and whether I commit a worker to the track for some earlier points, or do I want to keep them out there and go as high as I can on the actual piety or the church track. So I really hope this was helpful for you. Again, my name is John LaRuffa, and this was a rule speed through at normal speed this time, because I just want to make sure people understand what's going on, and the rules this time needed a little bit more roughing out. If you liked what I did here, please consider subscribing and liking my channel on YouTube. It's really helping me out, and I'm really trying to build a fan base and a subscriber base. So each and every individual subscribe really helps me. Thank you very much. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon.